This podcast is for anyone who has ever felt stuck, whether it's a major life transition, a dark night of the soul, or just staying small out of fear. If you've ever struggled to move forward, if you're repeating unhealthy patterns in relationships, or you have a black belt in beating yourself up, you were meant for more, and this podcast is for you. We'll get real, we'll get vulnerable, we'll probably cuss a little bit, and we'll get to the root of it all, your self-worth. With every step, you'll find the courage to rise.
Welcome to a holiday episode of the Courage to Rise podcast. It's December 24th, 2019, and no matter what you celebrate, no matter what your religious faith, no matter what your personal beliefs are, this is a time of year where, at least in the Western world, we are collectively celebrating the holidays, which can come with a lot of joy, come with a lot of fun, come with a lot of laughs, and it can also come with some heavier stuff for some people. Depending on where you are, depending on what's gone on in your life for the last year, it can be a time that is filled with a lot of different emotions. It can bring up a lot of things around family, depending on your relationship with your family of origin. If there's been conflict, if there's been dissent, if there's been estrangement, it can bring up a lot of feelings around that. If you've gone through a loss this year, if you've lost someone that's normally with you at the holidays, whether they've passed on, whether you've gone through a divorce, whether you've gone through a breakup with a longtime partner, and it can also be confronting for people that aren't in the place that they want to be, or aren't in the place that they thought they were going to be at this point, or don't have the partner that they want, or don't have the family that they want in whatever sense of the word that is. And it can be a very emotional time. It can also bring up a lot of those perfectionistic tendencies and a lot of those feelings of needing to be perfect in front of family or in front of friends that you might be hosting. It's really a time that very intensely brings up a lot of the things that we talk about and that I talk about in terms of, our feelings and the way that we show up in the world and the things that trigger us, whether it's something like getting super, super stressed out about having the perfect Christmas so a parental figure or someone doesn't criticize you for it, or whether it's debating whether or not to invite an estranged parent to dinner, whether it's being sad about the child that you haven't gotten pregnant with, the family that you haven't created for yourself yet, the partner that you don't have, or just if the holidays look different than you thought they were going to. And it's a time when sometimes we can feel even more alone, even when we're surrounded by a lot of people. Sometimes we feel really misunderstood by the people in our lives. It can be very confronting. And it's a perfect time to talk about how to work through those challenging times, how to honor what you're feeling, and how to resource you into a place where you can find some more joy no matter what's going on or no matter what's coming up for you. The first place to start is to honor the fact that you're having feelings, whatever the feelings are. I talked in the last episode about how shame blocks us, and shame blocks us from absolutely everything. It's literally like we put a lid on a pot and keep ourselves, contained, and that doesn't help, or eventually we're going to explode, literally or metaphorically. But we start by allowing ourselves to have those feelings. It can be a time when we bring a lot of shame and a lot of shoulding around, I should be happy, I should be, jolly or cheerful, or it's that time of year, like I feel like I should, be in a different place or in a different mood, or I should be happy and I'm not. And shaming and shoulding on ourselves is not productive. It's not helpful. It keeps us in a very disempowered place. So whatever's coming up for you around the holidays, allow yourself to feel it. If you don't have a journaling practice, I would encourage you just to sit down, get a piece of paper, piece of blank printer paper, open up a notepad on your phone, and just write about what feelings are coming up for you around the holidays. If you're feeling emotion, if you're feeling tearful, sometimes we're not even sure why because we haven't sat with it. Sometimes we just get really emotional and we're going, well, I don't even know where this is coming from. What the hell am I getting emotional about? And we judge ourselves for being emotional because we haven't connected what's really underneath it. So give yourself permission to feel what you feel. And take a little time. I know it's a busy time of year for everybody, but this is for your mental health and for, a positive experience for you overall. But take, 10 minutes even. Go somewhere quiet and feel into what feelings are really coming up for you. If it's, grief around, missing someone or whatever is coming up, whatever the holidays mean for you, start with allowing yourself to feel it. Allow yourself to feel the emotions. Cry if you need to cry. Then once you've moved that emotion, once you have a better connection to what's going on with you, to what you're missing, if it's grieving the loss of a person who has passed on, then feel that. Feel their absence and let yourself feel how much you miss them. And then shift into honoring them, being grateful for having them in your life, and shift yourself into that place. And then, if it's something that is not in your life that you want, if it's that you're alone at the holidays and you really want a partner, you really want your own family, then allow yourself to want that. And when there's something that we really want that we don't have yet, sometimes it comes back to the pain is associated with we fundamentally don't believe that it's possible for us. That deep down we think that, if I'm alone now, I've maybe been alone for the last few Christmases, that I'll be alone forever. And we make it very pervasive, and that causes a lot of pain. And so just acknowledge that and allow yourself to believe that this is, if that's what you really want, you're going to be able to have it. You're going to have it. It's patience with the process, with allowing that to come to you in its own time, to connect to the feelings that you're wanting to have. If it's family, a family of your own you want, if it's love with a partner that you want, allow yourself to want that. Allow yourself to believe that it's going to happen for you in the right time. And then in the meantime, you want to look for what is the feeling that I want from that, and how can I connect to more of it right now today? Like, what is within my control to call in more of that? So if what you want is love with a partner and you haven't met them yet, you haven't connected with them yet, then allow yourself to go through the process of grieving that that's something you don't have right now. Allow yourself to believe that just because you don't have it now doesn't mean it's never going to come for you. Allow yourself to believe that it's on the way. And then shift into, okay, that love feeling that I want. How can I bring more of that into my life right now? Because sometimes we associate love with just being a romantic partnership. But you can show love in a variety of ways, whether it's love for your animals, whether it's love for friends, parents, the barista at Starbucks, right? Love is sometimes sharing a smile with a stranger and just brightening their day because you made eye contact with them and smiled. And you ask yourself, how can I bring more of that feeling that I really want into my life right now today? Another big one that comes up this time of year that I work with a lot of clients on, especially around the holidays, are if they're estranged from a parent, or there's some massive dissociation with their family of origin, or there's been some kind of falling out, or maybe they have a parent that's truly toxic. And when I say toxic, I mean like legitimately toxic. And that's something that comes up a lot as well around this time of year. And a lot of this is about setting boundaries and deciding what you're going to allow and what you're not willing to allow. So if you're choosing to have, someone over, it doesn't have to be a parent, right? It can be a family member. You're choosing to have someone over with whom maybe you've had a contentious relationship, or you've had, there's some past history there that's been kind of unpleasant, and they bring up certain feelings in you and you're feeling very anxious about it. The very best way to shift through that for the duration of the holiday period, if you're going to be seeing them over the holidays, is first of all, get really clear on the outcome of how you want that interaction to go and how you're going to go into the situation. Get clear on, okay, I know that this person usually triggers me when, X, Y, or Z happens. And if you don't know what I mean when I say trigger, I mean when you have that like full body flood of emotion, reaction, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, whatever it is, right? It's that full body flood. They trigger you. And all of a sudden you're in your reactive limbic brain. And they've really triggered emotion in you. So you know what tends to trigger you. And so you think about, okay, if that happens, here's what I'm going to do. So that then when you're in that moment, you have a plan already. You have some certainty around that. And then you look at, what are my boundaries around this situation? So if you are, let's say, inviting this person over to your house, and maybe let's take the example of it's a relative or a friend, or maybe somebody that maybe has a history of drinking too much and getting kind of loud and obnoxious, and it's really disruptive and it makes other people really uncomfortable. You can choose to have them over, and you can also choose that if that happens, you're going to set a boundary, which is, hey, Uncle Fred, maybe you want to go sit in the armchair and have a cup of tea, right? And chill out for a little bit. And that's your boundary. You're saying, hey, dude, knock it off. You're making everybody uncomfortable, right? And if that behavior continues, then you can politely invite him to leave, call him an Uber, send him home safely. But I know it's kind of a silly example. Everybody has that drunk uncle. I feel bad for uncles everywhere. But it's a common example. But the point is that what you're doing is you're setting boundaries around, and remember, boundaries aren't about barbed wire and Dobermans and reactivity. Boundaries are very calmly saying, this is what I'll allow. This is what I won't. If this is violated, then I'm going to ask you to leave, right? Or I'm going to remove myself from a situation. If you're in a situation where you become very uncomfortable, then you remove yourself calmly from the situation. Another really powerful thing that you can do if there's, let's say there's a family dinner that's coming up that you always get asked the same questions by a parent or a family member, like, why are you still single? Or when are you guys getting married? When are you going to have a baby? Some of those well-intended but wildly intrusive and ultimately inappropriate questions that go around in society. Think about how you're going to address it if that comes up. And connect with what, if any, shame comes up for you around that. Because it's, and people mean well, but there are things that can be very hurtful. So, if you ask a couple who's married, when are you going to have a baby? It could be that they've been trying for the last 2 years to have a baby and they haven't been able to get pregnant, and that's super painful. So just as a general rule, it would be wonderful if we could eliminate from society all of those annoying fucking questions about life stages. When are you getting married? When are you having a baby? When are you having another baby? Stop it. If you do this, just stop. I know you mean well, but just stop. And if you're on the receiving end of that, think about, if you're in a position where you get asked those questions and it really doesn't feel good for you, there's nothing wrong with very politely saying, that question actually really makes me uncomfortable. Or, telling them that that's actually not something that you want to talk about. You can very politely redirect, where you don't actually have to answer a question just because you're asked about it. And you can very politely redirect to something else. And it gives you an opportunity also to kind of think in advance about, okay, if this question comes up that, we'll use Uncle Fred again, that Uncle Fred asks me every year, then this is how I'm going to answer it this year. And you can do it in a way, it's very calm, because this is about a boundary, right? You're setting a boundary around that's not actually something you want to talk about, or it's not something you're comfortable talking about. And it can even be, depending on your relationship with the person, you have an elderly aunt who seems to somehow, every word out of her mouth sounds insulting, and comments on how much you have to eat at Christmas. And maybe you need to loosen your belt a little bit. And you could look at her and say, wow, Aunt Trudy, that actually feels really hurtful to hear. You literally kind of call a thing a thing. You're not doing it in a reactive way. You're not being ugly. You're reflecting back on how that's impacting you, because maybe she doesn't know. And even if she does, you're very calmly drawing a boundary that basically is saying, hey, that's not okay. And if it continues, then maybe you get up from the table, or maybe you don't go to Christmas dinner at her house next year, right? And the last example I'll give is, let's say you're hosting the holiday and you have historically been someone who gets very wound up about the stress and pressure of hosting a holiday. It's an opportunity where you feel like you have to be perfect or you'll be judged by, maybe a mother or friends or whoever it is, whatever comes up for you around feeling like everything has to be perfect. And that somehow if it's not, then what, you're going to be put on trial, right? But it's a good opportunity to tune into what is coming up for you around this feeling that everything has to be perfect, and freeing yourself from that prison, because things happen, things get burned, the timing on things don't work out the way you think, right? These things just happen, sometimes no matter how much planning you put into it. And the truth is, if you're cooking a meal for someone else, the very fact that they didn't have to cook that meal for themselves is a gift. And if they really don't like it, at the end of the day, they have the opportunity to go to McDonald's or the local Chinese restaurant afterwards and get some food. They will not starve. You are fine. So if that's been your pattern, where you get really stressed out about hosting and it really ultimately leaves you exhausted and drained at the end of the day, think about going into it. This is something you can use for everything, but what do you want your outcome to be? What is the purpose of having your family over, having your friends over? Well, ultimately, we do it because it's a time to get together, to celebrate, to honor this time of being together. That just like the Grinch says, it's not Christmas coming from a store. Maybe Christmas means a little bit more. I totally butchered that, but y'all know what I'm talking about from the Grinch. Thank you, Dr. Seuss. But of coming back to what's the outcome and really what is it about? It's about the opportunity to be together. It's about the opportunity to take some time out of our daily lives, to be with people we love that maybe we don't get to see often, or to just, if you're someone who doesn't really have a lot of family in your life right now, maybe it's an opportunity to be with friends. Maybe it's an opportunity to spend the day by yourself and celebrate and go see a movie and take really good care of yourself. Whatever it is, I'm digressing from my initial point, but you're looking at what is the outcome you're going for. So what is your outcome for having your family over? It's that we want to have a good time. We want to celebrate together. Okay, so if the green bean casserole gets burnt, okay, are you still going to enjoy being together? Use it as an opportunity to keep things in perspective for what this is really about and for what you really want that time together to be. So to tie a bow on this podcast, because it's the holidays and we're tying bows, remember, even more so than ever this time of year, whatever it is that's going on for you, tune into your boundaries around whatever the situation is, your personal boundaries. Tune into your feelings, what's coming up for you. Allow yourself to have those feelings. Allow them to move through you. Check in on the self-love. How are you doing? Are you judging yourself? Are you shaming yourself? Are you shitting on yourself? Or are you allowing to feel what you feel, processing through those feelings, and then shifting yourself into a more empowered place, which can be looking for the gratitude for the things that you do have in your life right now, looking for the small things that bring you joy, even right now, and tuning into things that feel really good for you. And if you are alone on the holidays, or if you are not in the situation that you want to be in, allow yourself to deeply know that it's not going to be forever. And allow yourself to want what you want. Allow yourself to paint a picture of how you want your holidays to be in the future. And look at the things that you can start doing or continue doing that are going to bring more of that to you. So I had a conversation with a client the other day where we were talking about, the context was around some deeply toxic family members. And family of origin does not necessarily mean family. Blood does not necessarily mean family. Family is a feeling. And so if your family of origin doesn't fit, if there's deep estrangement there that is either not ready to be healed or can't be healed yet, then look at how you define family and what does family feel like for you? Because you can create your family from friends, from connections, from other people in your life. You can create the feeling of family, of love, of warmth, of acceptance, all of those things. If it didn't come from your family of origin, then create it. Find ways to call it into your life in different ways. So with that, every day, but especially around the holidays, take wonderful care of yourself. I'm going to wish you a Merry Christmas because that's how I personally celebrate the holidays. But if you don't celebrate Christmas, I invite you to take that blessing and that well-intended greeting as whatever resonates with you, and that the meaning behind it is that I wish you well and happiness and celebration in whatever you believe and celebrate. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Courage to Rise podcast. Visit my website, couragetorise.com, for more information on one-on-one coaching, group coaching programs, and other upcoming events. Remember, life's too short not to sparkle. Sparkle on.